Why do we need a drunk centre? What are they calling it?
It's a sobering up centre in Collingwood. We need it because in about 10 days' time, public drunkenness will be decriminalised. So police, they'll no longer take you off to the drunk tank in the police cell. You won't just sit there and drink it off or lie there and drink it off. You can still be taken to a hospital, to a health centre, but I don't think police can transport you there because you're not involved with the police.
This
the police
city has
aren't there to
survived
be
without
using
one
ambulances.
this long. What do you need one for?
It's a change to procedures.
There has been serious issues as a result of it. I actually think it's a good idea. At the moment, it is not being implemented correctly because the Herald Sun is reporting that this is all meant to happen. The law changes on November the 7th, and we were told that this sobering up centre would be ready in Collingwood, would be ready on November the 7th.
Because it's an old aged care home that they're having to refit out. But we did raise this at the time, saying, you sure it'll be ready in time? Because it's only a month or two's time. You'll be the one business that'll be able to get tradies and supply and everything through. By the sounds of it, not quite.
No,
anyway.
And the Herald Sun is reporting that it's not going to be ready. So that's clearly unacceptable. Yeah. I also think that having one sobering up centre at the moment with 20 beds
for the
in
entire
Melbourne, for the entire
CBD, Melbourne, like from Mornington through to Werribee,
City
up
of 5
to
million
Broadmeadows,
is not enough. Yeah. But there are most people, including the Police Association, agree it is, and in other states, it's already happened. Decriminalising public drunkenness is a good thing to do, but you have to have the processes in motion. Now, the processes, they've also got 10 crews that will be going around Melbourne in vans to help the police. So if the police find someone who's drunk, not a danger to other people, not so ill or so affected that needs to go to hospital.
And police have watched their training video that says walk on by.
Yeah.
You can't force them to do anything. You can't pick them up and take them anywhere.
But the police will contact these 10 crews. Now, once again, good idea, but they need to have obviously more than 10 crews and they need to have them all up and running. At this stage, we don't know. Now, we have approached the government, asked them to talk to us. At this stage, they haven't agreed to it.
Have we sorted out who you ring if you're a bar owner and there's
you're too legless, you wouldn't know.
No. I'm meaning if you're the bar owner or you're the bouncer or you're the person who's found a drunk person on the street who seems to be in a pretty substantial bit of trouble. Well, you can't call. There's no reason to call police anymore. Is there can you ring the sobering up centre and they send a van out to you?
If like talking about a bar owner, if the person is making a nuisance of themselves, absolutely, the police still get involved. If they are breaking the law, if they are making a nuisance of themselves, the police get involved. If they are
in a criminal
seriously,
sense.
in a
threatening sense, in
a public nuisance sense, like if you're in a bar, trying to fight with people, say, to make it clear and easy, well, then obviously the police get involved then. If someone is so badly intoxicated, there are fears for their health, obviously you call an ambulance and that goes on. So they're clear-cut cases and they're not the issue here. If someone is happily drunk, well, then obviously the police, if they come across them, will still say, look, listen, you can go. The problem, as Wayne Gatt pointed out at the time with the Police Association, is if you are a non-compliant drunk, like if someone says, look, listen, mate, you should go home or find a friend or get a friend to take him home or whatever, and they refuse to, that's the issue. The police then, at this stage, from November the 7th, will be able to do anything. Yeah. And that obviously person then becomes a danger to themselves and maybe even to others. These things have to be clarified. Now, it's happened everywhere else. It's happened everywhere else. It's a good idea. I don't understand why it hasn't happened here.
Joining us now is the Liberal Party member for Berwick, Brad Batten. Brad, seems like another state government waste of money in my view. What are your thoughts? Good morning.
Yeah, there's lots of concerns. It was actually interesting listening to Nick just then. The other thing that was removed was the move-on laws. So if you have someone who's in some of these areas and they're intoxicated, the police don't even have the power to move them on anymore, which they used to have. And I think these are some of the concerns that we've been raising. And you said about the numbers. they're setting up a centre one centre. In time, they'll have enough to accompany for 7,800 people per year. They're getting 11,000 through Adelaide. Now, I've been to Adelaide, and I actually think there's a lot more people in Melbourne, and we've got a lot better nightlife.
I reckon don't even have to go to Adelaide to know that to be true. There's a lot more people in Melbourne, and we have a much bigger nightlife than Adelaide would have, for sure.
But Brad, I mean, let's cut through it here. I think the opposition, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the opposition and the Police Association both agree that decriminalising public drunkenness, which has happened elsewhere in Australia, is a good idea. It's just the way it's being implemented at the moment is wanting dramatically.
Yeah, that's correct, Nick. And look, I can speak from two sides, as a former police officer and as a member of the opposition. And it's something that I think the Victoria Police want themselves, not just the association, but police on the ground, because we don't like locking up people when they're drunk. Just as you said, the happy drunk, the person that's not causing any problems but ends up 4 hours in a cell. That's not a good positive outcome, and it is a health outcome. Whether it's Indigenous people, as a lot of people have spoken about in the past, or everyday blokes down the street who have had too much at a nightclub, the best outcome for them is something where we can put them in a place that is a place of safety. However, our major concerns is police powers and even the powers of the Sobering Up Centre. They cannot force someone to go to it. It has to be voluntary. And as Heidi referred to before, that video, that sends shivers down my spine to say that an intoxicated female in a park, it's okay to leave them and we'll come back and check on them. But if we get called to another job, who checks on her in the next 4 or 5 hours in the middle of a park? These are the concerns we've been raising.
I mean, in fact, you have to leave her alone. You can't. She's not... The police have to just walk on.
But we also do have to stress, and I've just received a text about this as well, while there are 10 crews going around Melbourne, which is clearly not enough, they're the official crews. There are still lots of other organisations, lots of other charities, the Salvos being one, who still patrol the city and have done for years, looking after people who are intoxicated to make sure that, and driving them home now, as it is now. They have stepped up and they will continue to step up.
Yeah, but we're not arguing that they don't exist and don't have a purpose. It's just that this centre was supposed to be built. It's supposed to be purpose-built. It's supposed to be available. A government is saying they will change something and there will be all the appropriate supports in place, and those supports don't appear to be there. Yeah. What's your advice, Brad, on when it'll be open?
Well, the last time we asked about it, it would be open on time without any shadow of a doubt. It'll be open by Melbourne Cup Day. And then we heard just yesterday that now looks like that date's not going to happen. So, again, we're hoping to it. The government know we've been pretty supportive of this, but then they continue to put out information that's misleading. And that's not just to us. They didn't even have their meeting with the local community, as was actually on 3AW this week. The local community was supposed to have an information session, and the government pulled out on the day and said, no, we're not having it because there wasn't enough interest. You go and speak to the people in that community. There's definitely interest. Yeah, and I think we need to make sure people are aware of what's going on.
And I understand that the local community want to know what's going on. Now, I don't believe there are issues for the local community at the moment, but if you don't actually go and talk to them and explain what is actually going to happen, and even maybe give local community members a tour through the facility to ease their concerns. I mean, it's just a decent thing to do, but also it's common sense. If people say they've got a problem, as a government, as a local medical authority, you just say to them, okay, you've got a problem, let's sit down and we'll try and talk through the problem. Just common sense, isn't it?
Yeah. Nick, when you say that, it's actually the greatest fear is the fear of unknown.
Yeah.
So how many times in life do we go, oh, something so bad's going to happen when this, whatever, we're going to put something in place, and then all of a sudden it happens and everyone goes, oh, well, nothing really happened. This is actually a community who are just saying, we weren't told it was coming in, number one, but now we want to know what's going on. But because you continue to not meet with us, then we're thinking it is going to be the worst possible outcome. And when the information sheet they got actually said, if we have issues here, we're going to call the police. And then the police go, but we've got no power to arrest them if they're out in the street drunk.
That's right. Yeah.
So where are they going to go?
So you vote no.
You're not allowed to leave the centre till you've sobered up, so presumably there's a big lock on the door.
Yeah.
Well, how is that, Heidi? Because when they say you're not allowed to leave the centre till you're sobered up, it's a voluntary system. There's no arrest powers here.
No.
So is there a power?
What's their power to keep you?
So if someone's going absolutely nuts, you can't call the cops because they can't do anything.
You can.
Well, if they're doing damage to the place,
if they're breaking the law, yes, you can.
Yes. Yeah, Nick's right on that.
If they're assaulting or they're... Yeah.
Yeah, if they're assaulting people or being, showing signs of
being malicious, causing damage, or
serious drug use as well as alcohol, well, then obviously they're admitted to health facilities. Brad, when you were a police officer,
that's a health facility. The sobering up centre is a health facility.
Yeah, but it's not a hospital. If you've had a drug overdose, say for instance, you would be taken to hospital. You wouldn't go to this facility. If you're combined alcohol and drug,
I think you're still at this centre, aren't you?
Well,
the report does say it is possible. However, not for a drug overdose. It's for someone who's impacted by drugs. If you've had an overdose, I would like to think the ambulance is calling you're going to hospital, but you're not in a position generally as an overdose to make a decision. So the decisions are taken out of your hands by medical advice.
Ashley's come through with an email. What if a policeman sees someone drunk with a set of car keys in their hand?
Well, if you're not driving a vehicle, then what are you doing wrong? Because I've got car keys in my pocket when I go to the pub and I walk home with them. So that's
all right, then.
You might be a responsible drunk.
Yeah, or I mean, it's still not going to stop police talking to someone like that. And and police officers, they are human beings as well as everything else, and they would obviously talk to these people if there were signs that a person was going to try and drive. Brad, when you were a police officer, I remember when I was growing up, there was infamously a drunk tank at the Carlton Police Station, or close to the Carlton Police Station. When you were a police officer, was there a drunk tank or a local drunk tank that you used to take drunks to?
We didn't really have a drunk tank, so I worked at Dandenong and then I worked at Paran. So Dandenong was an A-class cell, so we actually had we could hold up to 28 prisoners who are on remand, or people who are intoxicated. And when I was at Paran, if anyone's driven past the Paran police station, it's quite dated. Inside there, it's effectively a cage. And I do remember taking someone in there, and as one of them pushed me to get away from me, I ended up with my shoulder effectively stuck on the metal because it dug through my arm. But it wasn't a safe that was an occupational health and safety place I'd like to go to again in a hurry.
Oh.
But yes, they've still got them. And so the cells that are in those places are still available.
So
just a police cell is a drunk tank. That's what I'm saying. Drunk tank.
A police cell is not the answer, though, is it? Because it occupies a police cell, which should be used for people who are serious, offenders.
Yeah, but that's what they've been for years. They won't be any longer, but that's what they have been for years. Just any police cell.
That's right. And unfortunately, there have been a number of incidents where people have died in the police cells because they were detained because of public drunkenness.
So your shoulder was skewered by the metal of the cage at Paran, Brad?
How did I know Darren would go into this part?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. It got stuck on there, and I've still got the scar to prove it.
Oh, what, stitches? Tetanus injection?
But I'm just going to quickly pick up on a point that Nick said then. Police cells, whilst we don't want to use them, and that's all it always has, or they haven't been a last resort all the time, but over time they have gone towards a last resort. But the report that came out around Tanya Day that started this, Tanya Day died in custody, that's because Victoria police members are not health workers. And that's not their role. So they don't pick up all the signs. So someone's died
and that's the whole point, isn't it? It is, if someone is like that, it would have been much better to have that particular person in the sobering up centre where there are health professionals who would have hopefully picked up pretty quickly that this was not just the fact that she was drunk, she had serious other health issues, and that's the point.
That's a massive issue, Darren, but you know what the issue is? That was in Castlemaine. Now, we've put one sobering up centre in Melbourne, in Collingwood, from a report, from a coroner's report that did a review in Castlemaine. So where do all the people in regional Victoria go, which started this entire move to get this changed? We had a death in custody at Dandenong.
Yeah.
Again, it's a long way from Dandenong to Collingwood, and to get a van out there each time and to have them available to those spots. So we're just saying to the government, you're not prepared. You're not going to give police the powers. You're going to remove their powers. It's going to make it and put vulnerable people in a worse situation. Just delay this. Put it on hold. Repeal it. Do whatever you need to do. But let's get it on hold until you've set it up, because that's what the report said. Set it up or it'll fail and people won't trust it.
So the regional Victoria not only lost the Commonwealth Games, they lost a drunk tank too.
Yeah,
well, they never had one.
Never had one. Losing everything.
Never had one. And once again,
there are plans to expand them, and especially into regional areas. There are plans.
Yeah,
they are. But at the moment, Heidi, they want to say to them, put them in the hospitals. Now, it doesn't matter what news channel you go to. You find me a news channel that says that our regional health isn't in crisis because of the issues they've had, and we've got emergency centres closed you're generally not open 24 hours in a lot of regional towns. Now, the drunk people who are getting locked up for intoxicated is generally about 11 till 7. And I think it was Darren James I've heard say plenty of times, nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's when they end up in these places, and that's when the hospitals are under the most pressure already. And now we're saying to these nurses, here you go, here's a fella that's been down at the pub and's had 20 beers. You handle him. We'll be right.
Exactly.
That's
good point, Brad.
Cannot we also stress we have actually asked the government to come on and actually explain whether, in fact, this is going to be open on November the 7th.
Nothing.
Or whether it's not. At this stage, we haven't had a response.
Brad, you enjoy your Sunday.
I will do. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks for coming on. That's Brad Batten, Liberal Party member for Berwick.